So I came across this. What kind of consultation is that? McDonald pressed on asylum comments. And it was basically, when you consider that most of the population are vastly unhappy about what's happening around them based on this uncontrolled, well, you could argue, very controlled and deliberate onslaught of ongoing immigration at the expense of so many native people, to name the Western nation. Their frustrations are many for good reason. These people don't share our values. They're a bit of a dab hand, many of them, with a machete. They will commit acts that reasonable people in Western nations wouldn't even contemplate. And they have a view of us, by and large, that is not conducive with, well, for a start, among many things, respect. Genuine respect. After all, wouldn't you ideally be coming to a nation based on the respect of how well that nation's people have made it such a great place to live in? But it's not about that. It's absolutely about, here, we'll fund you for this, that, and the next thing. We'll put you up in accommodation. We'll give you hotels. We'll give you money in your pocket, a phone, first dibs on many jobs, and the front of the queue of many perceived services. And all along, people in Western nations more and more are starting to realise, wait, they could have solved homelessness overnight at a fraction of the cost of what their ongoing spending is, to bring in people that we don't want, by and large, because they're not bringing value. They're bringing concerns. Inarguably something that, if it carries on, will destabilise these Western nations. But this is what this is about, destabilisation. And what this individual, but you could exchange that individual for so many other people, is they say, hey, look, you've got a voice. In fact, we'll give you consultations, but they use variations on the Delphi technique to bring about a specific and pre-planned outcome, giving the illusion that the people in general had an input on what the outcome was supposed to be. And nothing could be further from the truth. And then add to that, there's an arrogance with them, because they're completely, by and large, unaffected by what they're pushing on others, no matter what they're saying. I would argue you're not going to find most of your politicians and council honchos and all the rest of it alongside the very areas that these economic migrants and others are coming into. And in many instances, it's more than the population of the place they're going to. And why wouldn't the public at large, people generally, be concerned about this? Because the lack of empathy for the people they purport to represent is astounding, is jaw-dropping. Remember, the illusion is they're supposed to be working for you, but they're working for everybody but. And I keep saying, what happened to this thing they kept preaching about in the last few years called a duty of care? What happened to a duty of care for the very people you purport to represent, to work for? It's astounding. Arguably, or inarguably, I could do a better job of this. It's not an easy subject, among many. But with that in mind, let me grab a speaker and, under fair use, let you hear the following, and maybe stopping occasionally when I think it's warranted.
People have an opportunity to be consulted, to make observations, to make submissions. That never grants an individual citizen or community a veto.
Think about this. Yeah, you can bump your gums to us, but, ultimately it's still happening, and you better get used to it. And then at some point they say, because we're in a democracy, which isn't that the polar opposite of what democracy is all about, you know? Yeah, you're supposed to represent the people who apparently put you into a position of trust.
We're not talking about a veto. We are talking about respectful conversations with community.
Deputy MacDonald, you've spoken about the need to consult communities on asylum centres, but at the same time you've also said that communities don't have a veto on who lives in their area. So how is that consulting people when they aren't even allowed to say no? What kind of consultation is that exactly?
Now, straight away, she then says his first name, Ben. So on the subliminal, Ben from Gripped Media has now been, well, I don't know if the term is embraced into the fold, but has been recognised, shall we say. Now, I keep an open mind about that, because maybe they're doing it deliberately to make everybody feel, oh, well, he's already bought and paid for. But, and I always keep an open mind, but so far from what I've seen in Grip Media, by and large, it's been pretty reasonable. So with that in mind, let's play on.
Ben, thank you for the question. And it's consultation as per every other public process of dialogue and engagement. Is at the heart of our planning system, for example, where people can make their objections.
But remember, when she's talking about planning system, it's basically the rollout of Agenda 21. I know I keep saying other people call it whatever. It's, you know, you can rebrand it as much as you like, but it is the rollout of the goals of Agenda 21. That's absolutely what you're seeing happen right before your eyes. So, and the whole aspect of Agenda 21 is there is no democracy. We're way beyond that. We're way beyond the illusion of that.
Comments, they can bring forward their substantive case and do so in good faith. But they don't have a veto. None of us have a veto in that regard.
Think about this. Yeah. And even the term veto, you know, you're thinking it's more specific to something, but no, you don't have a choice. That's the real words that should be put in there. You don't have a choice. This is happening. Yeah.
That's not what we're proposing. And can I just reiterate again, I really think it is not helpful for us to get lost in the veto area.
This is all mindfuckery, seriously. Remember, you're still focused on veto when ultimately what she's saying is choice. You've no choice. None.
Because actually, what people are looking for is dialogue. They're also looking for clear information. Clarity of information. Even that hasn't been...
And the last thing they're giving is clarity of information. Because if they were doing that, they just put on their websites the blueprints of the rollout of Agenda 21. Yeah? And the goals of it. And then that way, people would say, all right, okay. Holy shit. All right. No, well, we can't do that.
Provided to the community. Clarity of information, dialogue, to be heard, to be listened to.
But would you accept that there are some communities who want more than that? I mean, what would you say to a community who had received all of the information, they know the facts, they've done the engagement, and at the end of that process, they still say, we don't want this?
Yes, and I don't know any such community who's had the kind of process that we're describing.
Oh, wait, have you not watched any TV or platform over the last, how long? Few months? No, obviously not.
But in circumstances, I would say to everybody, you have your voice.
Think about this. Your voice.
You have to be heard.
You have to be heard. Well, you're being humoured because it's still happening.
None of us have a veto.
None of us have a veto. So it's still going ahead. That's it. Exchange the word veto and then please put, you have no choice in this. This is happening. It's happening. That's it. You better accept it. You can bump your gums. We'll pretend to care. But let's look at our very actions. We're literally putting you into harm's way. Any illusion of genuine obligation of caring for the very people you purport to represent has gone absolutely out the window. And now, even statistically, you are far higher risk now of so many crimes based around the fact that the majority of the people that are entering our countries do not share our values, have no interest in integrating in the slightest, and, well, would give one pause for thought. And I'm being very polite here. You look at what's happening in so many places, and none of this needs to happen. None of it. But the very people in various costumes who purport to represent our interests are but actors, occultists, I would say. Do I know for definite this individual's an occultist? No, I don't. But I would say there's a good chance she'll be Eastern Star, possibly OTO, possibly in the New Age movement, possibly a Theosophist, possibly many of those. Yeah? But they certainly don't share the same thoughts and beliefs as the rest of us, in all honesty.
None of us have a veto. That's not how democratic processes of decision-making...
Think about the witchcraft of that. That's not how democratic processes work, essentially. Yeah? What doublespeak shenanigans is that? Think about what she just said. It's going to happen. You can talk about it. We'll pretend to listen, but it's going to happen. That's not how democratic...
voice. You have to be heard. None of us have a veto. None of us have a veto. That's not how democratic processes of decision-making and planning work.
So even if a community doesn't want it,
So, handler to the side.
Community doesn't want it.
One question per person. We're trying to keep concise.
As I said, you're dealing with a society within our society. I know I don't get a lot of traction on my vids, but I suppose at the same time, well, people need to be entertained, but until they start realizing that you are dealing with an interconnected bunch of occultists from various sects and sects, and some of them are in many of those, you know, it's not easy. It's not easy to wake people up to that one, because once they saw that, they'd start realizing what they're dealing with. But then, because then you stop looking at whatever party is, you know, thrown in your direction as a solution. Once you start realizing it's the same occultists behind all these parties, that's when you start realizing, oh wait, well, that's not going to be a solution, is it? And then you'll start making better decisions, because the last thing people should have is hope. Hope is for fucking idiots. That's what hope has always been about. Hope does fuck all except make an awful lot of people procrastinate as opposed to think of solutions, I would argue, in all honesty. Yeah. Whatever potential solution as regards even the perception of democracy in the future, well, certainly by their actions, I would say, is something you need to start looking at a bit more often. Backgrounds, all the rest of it, and have they been a benefit or a liability?